These were apex predators, ancient and powerful, their eyes burning with a cold reptilian intelligence. The gangs would meet this challenge head-on. Their laser pistols, mere pinpricks of light against the dragon's massive forms, spat beams of concentrated energy, aiming for the eyes, the vulnerable underbellies, any chink in the dragon's seemingly impenetrable. Once upon a time in Neon, the city pulsed. Towers clawed at the sky, chrome and glass fangs against the bruised purple of perpetual twilight. The dragons were coming, and they were not coming in peace. From the heart of a dying sun, they came. These were apex predators, ancient and powerful, their eyes burning with a cold reptilian intelligence. The gangs would meet this challenge head-on, with fire and fury all their own. Word spread through the neon canyons like wildfire. The gangs met the news with a grim determination. This was their city. The battle was about to begin. Before time, before memory, even before the first whisper of creation touched the void, there were dragons. Forged in the heart of supernovas, tempered by the cold void of space, they were creatures of immense power. The dragons felt it, a tremor in their bones, a cold dread that whispered of a coming storm. The dragons possessed powers that defied mortal comprehension. Their most fearsome weapon was their breath, the raw power of the universe unleashed. They could be wounded, even slain, but only by weapons of great power, forged in the fires of creation itself. The dragons were creatures of instinct and ancient wisdom. They were content to roam the skies, guardians of the ley lines, those invisible pathways of energy that crisscrossed the globe. The dragons were inextricably linked to the ley lines, and their fate was intertwined with that of the earth itself. For centuries, the dragons had remained hidden from the world, content to watch from the shadows as civilizations rose and fell. The prophecy of steel and scale foretold of a clash between the dragons and a new breed of warriors, clad in steel and wielding weapons of fire and lightning. A great battle was coming, a clash of titans that would determine the fate of the world. In the concrete jungle, where shadows danced with neon reflections, a different breed roamed. They were the gangs, the chrome hearts, the gasoline souls. They would meet this challenge head-on, with fire and steel, and the unwavering belief in their own strength. The gangs were a diverse lot, each with their own history, their own reasons for riding. They were united by a common thread, a restless spirit, a thirst for adventure that could not be quenched. They were ready for anything, or so they thought. The gangs might have scoffed at tales of magic and ancient prophecies, but they were not fools. The air itself felt charged, buzzing with an energy they couldn't explain. They were ready for anything, or so they thought. Despite their differences, their rivalries, the gangs understood one fundamental truth. The open road was a great equalizer. Word spread like wildfire. The dragons were coming. The city held its breath, bracing for the storm. The city held its breath. The dragons came not as a conquering army, not at first, but as scouts. The gangs, used to ruling the night, found themselves strangely subdued. The city, once a symphony of noise and light, became a hushed, watchful thing. The dragons' presence was impossible to ignore. They were a constant threat, a reminder that the old order, the order of concrete and steel and neon, was no more. One by one, the citizens who hadn't already fled barricaded themselves in their homes, their apartments. Food became scarce. The whispers on the wind, once rumors and legends, were now pronouncements of fear. The dragons were real, and they were here. The gangs, however, found themselves drawn to the dragons, their fascination outweighing their fear. There was a terrible beauty in their power, an echo of something ancient and primal that resonated within their own gasoline-fueled souls. They would gather on rooftops, watching the dragons circle overhead, their bikes silent, their faces illuminated by the flickering lights of the city. It was Hammer, the Iron Phantom's leader, a mountain of a man with a voice like a rock slide who broke the silence first. "They ain't gonna leave, are they?" he rumbled, his gaze fixed on a dragon soaring above them, its scales catching the light of the moon. Nobody answered. They didn't need to. The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of inevitability. The first clash was inevitable. A group of night stalkers, their bikes modified for stealth, were scouting out a possible escape route from the city, navigating the deserted back alleys with practiced ease. They encountered a dragon in a narrow passage, its bulk filling the space between the buildings, its eyes glowing like hot coals in the darkness. The stalkers, trained to disappear, to melt into the shadows, found themselves frozen in the dragon's gaze. They were outmatched, outgunned, facing a creature whose power dwarfed their own. But they were night stalkers. Fear was a luxury they could ill afford. Wraith, his voice a low growl from behind his mask, ordered his team back. The dragon, sensing their retreat, let out a roar that shook the buildings to their foundations. It was a warning, a challenge, and the night stalkers, adrenaline surging through their veins, accepted. What followed was not a battle, not in the traditional sense. It was a desperate scramble for survival. The stalkers, using their bikes' agility and their knowledge of the city's underbelly, weaved and dodged, their laser pistols spitting fire that seemed pathetically weak against the dragon's scales. The dragon, enraged by their defiance, lashed out with claws and teeth, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. News of the skirmish spread through the city like wildfire. The uneasy truce between the gangs shattered. The dragons had made the first move. Now, it was a fight for survival. The city, their city, was at stake. The firebrands, always the first into the fray, met the dragons head-on. Their bikes, modified for speed and firepower, roared through the streets, leaving trails of fire and smoke in their wake. Spark, her laughter echoing above the din of battle, led the charge, her laser pistol blazing a path through the chaos. The Iron Phantoms, their love of a good fight outweighing even their fear of the unknown, met the dragons with a ferocity that bordered on suicidal. Hammer, his bike a battering ram of chrome and steel, charged headlong into the fray, his laughter echoing above the roar of engines and the screams of the fleeing citizens. Even the Night Stalkers, masters of stealth and shadows, found themselves drawn into the open, their laser pistols spitting fire as they harried the dragons from the shadows, using their knowledge of the city to their advantage. The city, once a place of neon dreams and asphalt dreams, became a battleground, the air thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal and dragon fire. The battle raged for days, the lines between day and night blurred by smoke and fire. The dragons, their initial amusement at the gang's defiance giving way to a cold fury, unleashed the full extent of their power. Buildings crumbled beneath their claws, the streets ran red with fire. The gangs, outnumbered and outmatched, fought with the desperate courage of those who had nothing left to lose. They had their bikes, their weapons, and the unyielding belief that somehow they could survive this. But as the days turned into nights, and the nights into days, their hope began to dwindle. The city, once a beacon of light and progress, lay in ruins. The air was thick with smoke, the streets littered with the wreckage of bikes and the charred bones of dragons. The gangs, those who had survived, gathered on a rooftop, their faces grim, their bodies weary. They had fought bravely, they had fought fiercely, but it was not enough. The dragons, their power absolute, their wrath terrible to behold, had won. Or so it seemed, for in the heart of the destruction, a spark of defiance still flickered. The spirit of the gangs, the spirit of the open road, could not be so easily extinguished. The dragons, their patience exhausted, unleashed the full fury of their ancient power upon the city. No longer content with skirmishes and displays of strength, they descended upon the cityscape with a wrath that shook the very foundations of the world. Buildings, once symbols of human aspiration, crumbled into dust beneath their claws. Streets, once arteries of bustling life, became rivers of molten asphalt as dragonfire swept through them. The air, thick with smoke and ash, tasted of destruction, a grim testament to the dragon's overwhelming might. The very earth trembled beneath the dragon's fury. Earthquakes, triggered by their rage, ripped through the city, splitting concrete and sending skyscrapers toppling like children's toys. The sky, once a distant promise of peace, now crackled with the energy of their wrath, lightning storms erupting around the dragons as they moved, harbingers of oblivion. The gangs, scattered and disoriented, found themselves fighting for survival amidst a maelstrom of fire and destruction. Their bikes, once symbols of freedom and rebellion, were now liabilities, their chrome and steel no match for the raw power of the dragons. Yet, even in the face of annihilation, the spirit of defiance, the unyielding will that had always defined them, refused to be extinguished. The battle raged across the ravaged cityscape, a chaotic ballet of fire and fury. Dragons, their scales gleaming under the crimson sky, clashed with the biker gangs amidst the ruins of their once proud city. The air roared with the dragon's fury, each blast of fire incinerating everything in its path. Buildings became infernos, their steel skeletons twisting and melting under the intense heat. The streets, littered with debris and the smoldering husks of vehicles, offered no sanctuary, only a charred and treacherous battleground. Their laser pistols, mere pinpricks of light against the dragon's massive forms, spat beams of concentrated energy, aiming for the eyes, the vulnerable underbellies, any chink in the dragon's seemingly impenetrable armor. The roar of engines, once a defiant anthem, became a desperate symphony of survival as the bikers weaved and dodged between bursts of dragonfire, their tires spitting molten asphalt. Each narrow escape was a victory, each fallen comrade a searing reminder of the ever-increasing stakes. The stench of blood and gasoline filled the air, a grim perfume of desperation and defiance. The gangs, their numbers dwindling with each passing moment, fought with the ferocity of those who knew no surrender, their backs against the wall, their hearts filled with a cold fire. Spark, her face streaked with soot and sweat, her eyes blazing with a fierce light, rallied her firebrands, their bikes transformed into fiery projectiles that crashed against the dragon's flanks, momentarily distracting the beasts, buying precious seconds for their comrades. Wraith, the Night Stalker's enigmatic leader, a wraith himself amidst the smoke and shadows, used his knowledge of the city's underbelly to lead his team in a series of daring hit-and-run attacks, their laser pistols chipping away at the dragon's defenses, exploiting any weakness, any momentary lapse in their concentration. Hammer, the Iron Phantom's giant leader, his bike a battered but unyielding weapon, became a one-man wrecking crew, charging headlong into the fray, drawing the dragon's fire, sacrificing himself so that others might live. His laughter, once a booming challenge, now a choked rasp, echoed through the ruins, a testament to his unwavering spirit. The city burned. Once a testament to human ingenuity, a vibrant tapestry of light and life, it was now a charred skeleton, its skyline choked with smoke, its streets littered with the debris of shattered dreams. The dragons, their fury seemingly boundless, reveled in the destruction, their roars echoing through the shattered canyons of glass and steel. They were lords of chaos, harbingers of oblivion, their ancient power unleashed upon a world that had forgotten its place. But amidst the ruins, a spark of resistance still flickered. The gangs, their numbers decimated, their bodies battered and bruised, refused to yield. They were the children of the city, its concrete and steel coursing through their veins, and as long as even one of them still drew breath, the fight was not over. On rooftops, in the shadows of shattered buildings, in the labyrinthine tunnels beneath the city streets, they regrouped, tending to their wounded, sharing what little water and ammunition they had left. They were outmatched, outgunned, facing an enemy whose power dwarfed their own, but they had one advantage the dragons did not. They had nothing left to lose. As the sun began its final descent, casting long shadows across the ruined cityscape, a shift occurred. The dragons, their initial fury seemingly spent, their victory seemingly assured, grew complacent. They had underestimated their adversaries. They had mistaken desperation for weakness, defiance for futility. It started with a whisper, a rumor carried on the smoke-filled wind. The gangs, scattered and broken though they were, had found a way to fight back, a way to level the playing field. The details remained shrouded in mystery, passed from rider to rider through a network of hidden comms and clandestine meetings in the ruins. The dragons, sensing a change in the air, a shift in the balance of power, grew wary. Their roars, once filled with triumph, now held a note of unease. They had awakened something ancient and primal in their relentless assault on the city, something they had not anticipated. They had awakened the spirit of defiance, the unyielding will to survive that burned brighter than any dragon fire. And that spirit, they were about to learn, was the most dangerous weapon of all. Deep within the ruined city, a different kind of fire burned. This fire crackled with energy, pulsed with a life force both ancient and new. This was the heart of the machine. Led by Spark, they found a device of unimaginable power. They toiled with desperate urgency, their survival at stake. As the final piece slotted into place, the machine was ready. The transformation was as startling as it was unexpected. The gangs, battered and bruised but unbroken, emerged from the depths of the ruined city, clad in armor that seemed to shimmer and shift in the flickering light of the fires. Their bikes, once mundane machines of chrome and steel, had been reborn, their engines augmented, their frames interwoven with pulsing veins of energy. They were no longer the Night Stalkers, the Iron Phantoms, the Firebrands. They were something new, something forged in the crucible of despair and defiance. They were the Phoenix Riders, and they rode forth with the fury of a city reborn from its ashes. The dragons, initially dismissive of this last-ditch effort, their arrogance fueled by centuries of unchallenged dominance, soon realized their mistake. The Phoenix Riders were no longer easy prey. They were a force of nature, their bikes transformed into blazing comets that streaked across the ruined cityscape, their weapons spitting bolts of energy that could pierce even the dragons' tough hides. The tide of the battle, which had seemed so decisively turned, began to shift once more. The air, once thick with the dragons' triumphant roars, now echoed with the roar of engines, the crackle of energy discharge, the defiant shouts of the Phoenix Riders as they challenged their ancient foes. In the heart of the maelstrom, a legend was being forged. Wraith, the Night Stalker's enigmatic leader, had become a phantom of vengeance. His bike, a blur of motion, cut through the roar of battle. Dodging dragonfire, his laser pistol hit targets with unnerving accuracy. His final weapon, a spear, struck fear into the dragons. The spear, pulsing with energy, was mounted on his bike. With a roar, Wraith launched the spear. It streaked through the air, a beacon of defiance. Piercing the lead dragon, a collective gasp arose. They had drawn first blood. The impossible had become possible. The battle raged around them, a whirlwind of fire and fury, but at the eye of the storm, a strange calm descended. The dragons, their leader fallen, circled warily, their roars laced with uncertainty. The Phoenix Riders stood their ground, their bikes humming with power, weapons trained on the dragons. The air crackled with tension, the silence broken only by the crackle of flames. In that moment, a new understanding seemed to emerge. The dragons, for all their power, were not invincible. The humans possessed a resilience that surprised even the ancient beasts. The outcome of the battle now hung in the balance. Smoke still curled from the wounds of the city, a stark reminder of the battle that had raged just days before. The air, heavy with the scent of ash and ozone, carried a silence that was more unsettling than any roar of dragonfire or scream of engines. The dragons were gone, vanished. Whether they had retreated in defeat or simply moved on, their presence no longer darkened the skies above the ruined cityscape. From the ashes, however, life, tenacious and unyielding, began to stir. The survivors, their faces etched with exhaustion and loss, emerged from the shadows, their eyes reflecting a newfound determination. They had stared into the abyss and emerged, battered but unbroken. The task before them was daunting. The city lay in ruins, its once proud skyline shattered, its streets choked with debris. But the spirit of those who had survived, the spirit forged in the crucible of fire and steel, could not be so easily extinguished. They gathered in the ruins, their differences forgotten, their rivalries rendered meaningless by the shared experience of loss and survival. They were the Phoenix Riders, and they were determined to rebuild, to honor the memory of those they had lost by creating something new, something better, from the ashes of the old. The scars of battle ran deep, both on the face of the city and in the hearts of its people. The cityscape, once a testament to human ambition, was now a stark reminder of the fragility of their creations. Buildings lay shattered, their steel skeletons twisted and broken, their glass facades melted and dripping like tears. But amidst the destruction, a strange beauty emerged. The twisted metal, the shattered concrete, the very air itself seemed to hum with a residual energy, a testament to the power that had been unleashed. It was a beauty born of chaos, a reminder that even from the depths of destruction, something new, something unexpected, could arise. The Phoenix Riders, their bodies bearing the marks of the battle, their hearts heavy with the memory of fallen comrades, moved through the ruins with a quiet purpose. They had seen things, experienced things, that had changed them forever. They had faced their own mortality, their own limitations, and found within themselves a strength they never knew they possessed. They were no longer the reckless daredevils, the adrenaline junkies they had once been. They were something more, something tempered by fire and loss. They were guardians now, protectors of a city reborn, their lives forever intertwined with the legend of the dragons and the battle that had reshaped their world. The city began to rebuild. From the wreckage, a new order emerged, built on cooperation and shared purpose. Gangs worked side by side, their skills now invaluable in rebuilding. The legend of the battle became a source of inspiration. Dragons, once myth, were now part of their history. The Phoenix Riders, their bikes repaired, their armor bearing battle scars, became symbols of hope, their presence a reminder of the unbreakable human spirit. As the city rose from its ashes, a new chapter began in its history. The scars of the battle remained, a constant reminder of the price they had paid for their survival. But they were also a testament to their resilience, a symbol of their determination to rebuild. The legend of the dragons lived on, whispered in hushed tones around campfires, passed down from parent to child as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the power that lay dormant in the world, waiting to be awakened. But it was also a story of hope, a testament to the courage and ingenuity of those who had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. The Phoenix Riders, their ranks swelled by a new generation, continued to patrol the city, their bikes a reassuring presence in the newly rebuilt streets. They were guardians, protectors, their lives forever intertwined with the legend of the dragons and the battle that had reshaped their world. And as the sun set on a city reborn, casting long shadows across the rebuilt skyline, they knew that their journey was far from over. The road ahead would be long, the challenges many, but they would face them together, united by the bonds forged in fire and steel, their spirits unbroken, their hearts filled with the enduring spirit of the open road, the road that led ever onward towards a future yet unwritten.